This month, 11 archbishops and 60 bishops signed a statement by the Anglican Communion Environmental Network on environmental racism. But what is environmental racism? Environmental racism is seen when Black lives are most impacted by environmental pollution. In South Africa, we see that those impacted by air pollution are predominantly Black communities living in the shadow of the coal-powered stations, many of them who cannot even afford to buy the electricity that is being produced and are forced to cook over coal in their homes. Levels of asthma, bronchitis, and lung disease are higher in these communities. We see that the environmental impact of coal mining is not felt by the wealthy who own shares in the mines, but by those who live downstream of polluted rivers, filled with acid mine drainage, and whose children become sick. It is people of color who live in townships where waste piles up, creating a health hazard, whereas in the leafy suburbs, regular rubbish pickups is a norm. Factories are pumping unregulated toxins into rivers that flow through poorer Black communities. It is the poorer workers who have less access to protective clothing who are forced to use unsafe chemicals. Poor Black communities have limited mobility to be able to connect with nature on the mountains or the beach. Play areas for their children are often dangerous, filled with litter and broken glass. Roaming the streets of poor communities, you will see cows eating plastic bags as they try to fill their stomachs with the few blades of grass which is growing, whereas cows in the fields of the rich grow fat with healthy crops. On a global scale, as we look at the rapid global response to COVID-19, which is affecting all people, rich and poor, we can only compare it with the slow response to climate change. Who is impacted by climate change the most? It is the Black nations, nations which are producing the fewest carbon emissions. We see on a global scale the alarming rise in the number of people becoming refugees due to climate change. It is estimated that there are 40 million climate refugees in the world today. Communities are being forced from their traditional lands due to drought and sea level rise. Climate change can lead to increased conflict as farming communities are forced off their land into cities. Whose lives are lost in floods and in drought? Who are the climate refugees? It is people of color. When we look at the media coverage of a shooting in Europe compared to the media coverage of thousands who lose their lives due to a drought or flood caused by climate change, we see the reality that #Black Lives don't matter. So our call is on the church to stand up. We stand at a kairos moment. In the words of Archbishop Tutu, in order to fight environmental injustice, we must also fight racial injustice. It is time to take action for climate justice. Let us show that Black lives do matter.